Hello everyone and welcome to the second lecture of Heterospory in Pteridophytes. In previous lecture, that was the first one on Heterospory in Pteridophytes, we discussed about what is heterospory and we learned about that what two different kinds of spores we have, smaller one as microspore and larger one as megaspore in Pteridophytes, and ultimately these spores germinate to form gametophyte, and these gametophytes they bear the sex organs, and the sex organs finally they produce the gametes, and since they produce the gametophyte, and that's why this phase is known as gametophytic phase. Today we will discuss about the next topic, that is origin of heterospory. What is heterospory? That is done. Today we will discuss about the origin, and two important points we will discuss over here. That means something about the time, and second one, that cause, that what was the cause that heterospory originated during the course of time. The first one, if we talk about the time, that means in the history of Earth during the time of evolution or during the course of time, what is that particular time? If you might have studied about the geological time scale, that is basically we study about the entire history of the Earth, that is divided into different time frame in millions of years ago, and we have different eons, the largest one, then we have the epoch, then we have the eras, then we have the periods, and that's why we study something about the time. That means during which time in Earth history the plants appeared, and during which time in Earth's history these vascular plants or pteridophyte like plants or pteridophytes they appeared, and during which time this heterospory evolved or appeared in plants. So this is the meaning of when we'll discuss about the time. So if we start about the origin of heterospory, initially all the plants when they appeared, okay, just now we will discuss during which time. Initially when first plants they appeared, okay, on this earth, they were all homosporous. That means they produced just one kind of spores. Initially all plants were homosporous. That means they produced just one kind of spores, and these spores were produced by the sporophyte. All the spores were similar in size and obviously in function. That means what is the reason behind that? Ultimately from this similar types or kinds of spores of one type, now different types of heterospory it originated. Now if we talk something about the time frame, about the time during which the plants appeared, one era we will study, not in detail because we are not going to study about the geological time scale. This is about the origin of heterospory. So if we talk about the geological time scale, and if we study about one era that we have to study, where we will see about how the plants or when the plants they evolved first, or the land plants. So one era is important, that is Paleozoic era. And if we talk about what is the duration or what is the time frame, that is from 540 million years ago to around 245 MYA. Now this is the time frame that we call it as Paleozoic era in Earth history. Now we can divide divide this Paleozoic era into different periods. We can have the earliest one, that is, we can have the Cambrian. These are actually the periods. So we have the Cambrian, then we have Ordovician, then we have the Silurian period, then we have the Devonian, then we have the Carboniferous, and we have Permian. That means if I say I have an era means simply that is the time frame in Earth history that consists of several hundred millions of years. So that duration of several hundred millions of years, and that period of time we call it as era, and specifically we call it as Paleozoic era. And this era we can divide into shorter time duration, and these are what we call it as periods. And these are, for example, each period again that is made up of hundreds of millions of years. That means if I say I have an Ordovician period, that means it is what is the duration of this Ordovician or Silurian or Devonian period? Hundreds of millions of years. So this is about the geological time scale. Now if we talk about the origin of plants, that means if we talk about the plants, where the plants appear, just now we will come on to the Heterospory, because this is also the part. If we talk about Ordovician, now this is the time where plants, they started to invade land. That means during this time, Ordovician period, you will see that plants and animals, they were under water. Now during this time of this period, what happened? That plants, they started to invade or appear on land. So that happened during Ordovician. If we talk about the Silurian, we will see that origin of earliest vascular plants. That means during this time, what happened? That already before this. So this is the earliest one, and this is, for example, if I say that from 542 to 45. That means from here to here we have. So this is how we divide. Now what happened initially, that during this time plants invaded land the first time, they started invading land, and after that during this period what happened, that vascular plants started to originate, the primitive kind of vascular plants. And all, why we say that? Because we have the records that we will study in the evidences. And when we come to Devonian, what happened, that during this time what happened, since we are not going to discuss Carboniferous and Permian, I will erase this. What happened during Devonian, this is very important. During this time, this primitive vascular plants, they became extinct. What happened? Now, evolution of modern vascular plants. Now, why modern vascular plants? Because now they will have, or they had, true root, stem and leaves. That means this happened during which time? During Devonian. And that's why when you study about the literature about Heterospory, it is mentioned about something about these periods or eras. That means this is very important. That means if you study during Devonian period what happened, that vascular plants that were very primitive, they got extinct, they perished. And ultimately what happened, that evolution of modern vascular plants, that means why modern? Because true root and stem and leaves appear in plant. And ultimately what was the result? That means what happened in Devonian period? That means now we had vascular plants, and if we talk about the earth, it appeared green. And now we had some plants in that Devonian period. If you see, some plants, instead of producing spore, now they started to produce some seeds. So this is about the time. That means during this time, somewhere around heterospory originated. So this is how we relate heterospory, origin of heterospory with relation or to the time. This is about the time. Now if we talk one major thing, one most important thing about the origin of heterospory is the cause. What is the cause? We have number of researchers, we have number of studies, and all those studies that are related to origin of heterospory, they come to one common point, and that common point is that why and how, not why, how this heterospory originated in plants. Initially, all plants, whether they were vascular, non-vascular, or vascular, they were homosporous, one kind of spores. Ultimately, what was the cause? And one major cause, and that various studies or researches that have shown, that is decrease in the number of spores inside sporangium. That means from homospory to heterospory, what happened? The important thing is that decrease in the number of spores inside sporangium. In simple flow chart, how we can study? Suppose this is your sporangium. This is your sporangium. Initially, and these are your spores. Now this is the condition of homospory. From homospory, what led to heterospory? What is the cause? We just saw, that is the decrease in the number of spore. Since I have the sporangium and this is a limited space, limited amount of nutrition, so nutrition played a very important role. That means now I have whatever amount of nutrition, and that nutrition or food, that is divided sorry, that is divided between large number of spores. That means if I have some amount of nutrition, that is divided into large number of spores, and that's why they did not grow much in size. So all the spores were similar in size. But what happened, as during the course of time, the number, here I have large number, here I have few. That means if I decrease the number, now I have decreased the number of spores. This is your sporangium and this is your spore. These are your spores and this is your sporangium. So what is the point? That decrease, initially I have what? I have large number of spores. So whatever nutrition is inside, that is divided in all the spores, and that's why they do not grow much in size. So they are smaller. Okay, all the spores are similar, and the condition you call it as homospory. Now what happened? As the number became less or few, Now that same amount of nutrition in the sporangium, now that is available to less number of spores, and that's why here we have more amount of nutrition for less number of spores, and that's why size it increase. That means now I will have two kinds of spores, and that's why this condition is termed as heterospory. That means this is one of the major cause, or this is the cause that since the number of spores it decreased in size sporangium, it will lead to what? The evolution of heterospory. That means, okay, I have less number, so the food is distributed less in all the spores. Now I have few number of spores or few spores over here, so enough amount of food is provided, and that's why they increase in size. So finally now I have two kinds. I have the smaller one, I have the larger one, and this condition is what we call as heterospory. Now this is the major cause according to the various amount of studies or researches. This is one of the major cause that how heterospory originated. So for this lecture, I think the things are very clear. We have seen about the time, something about the geological time scale. We discussed that, okay, initially all the plants, when they appeared, they were homosporous, whenever they started producing the spores, and ultimately what was the reason that heterospory originated in these plants. So one of the major point you have to take note, that is about the amount of food that was provided to the number, or that is related to the number of spores inside the sporangium. Now there are certain evidences to support this theory. Whatever we have studied, there are a number of evidences, and that we will discuss in coming lecture. That will be the third lecture on heterospory in pteridophytes. I think whatever we have discussed, that is very clear to you. Please go through the video, and whatever you feel like, you can comment in the commenting section. Thank you for watching the video.